start our Finance and Personnel Committee meeting that will be chaired by Chair Reisner. Tonight, as we're going to be looking at possible designs from the MSA consultants, and then we'll have time for council members and administration to ask any questions or make any comments. And we will have an opportunity for residents, citizens who are here tonight to make brief comments. There is a 3-minute time limit, and so we'll be asking you to sign in at the podium before you speak tonight. So with that, we'll start with the Finance and Personnel Committee with Chairman Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. 2 items tonight. Full presentation by MSA consultants, and after we beat that to death, we'll move on to 2015 Tourism Economic Impact Report from Padua Laws. And we'll start out with the pool here. As Madam President mentioned, we'll start out with the MSA consultants first to give their presentation. Then I'll entertain questions from members of the Finance Committee, then members of Council as a whole, then to other elected officials, the administration, and then we'll turn to the audience. I'd like to remind everybody this is a working Council committee meeting. It's public, but this is not a public meeting per se. So when you get a chance to make your comments, you have 3 minutes. Say what you have to say, then move on. Let the next person speak. So we'll start out with the 2 gentlemen from MSA. If you'd like to give your presentation, we're all ears.
Thank you. I'm Keith Hall with MSA Architects.
I'm Joe Pyle with MSA.
I'm Tim Schmalberger with MKSK. We're the landscape architects and site planners.
Thank you for having us all here tonight. This is it's been a great project to work on. I think I've seen some familiar faces in here that went to the community engagement meeting. We got a lot of great input from you guys that have been incorporated into these plans. And so hopefully everybody sort of starts to like what you see here. So I'm just going to kind of roll through this a little bit. This is just, there it is. This is just to kind of remind everybody of the existing site. We are building at the recreation site, and we've been studying, several ideas as to where to locate the pool on the site. So, we're not only looking at where the existing pool is, but we've been looking at other areas, surrounding the rec center, so that we can, put this pool, this project, in the best location. This is almost a once-in-a-lifetime project, and you want to get it right. And we're constantly challenging ourselves as to where is the best place to put this on the site. This is to remind everybody that we're building in a floodplain. So we have some unique circumstances that we have to deal with. Unique circumstances typically lead to additional funding, additional money. So we just need to understand that as we move forward and we start making some decisions about where to exactly put the pool on the site. Unfortunately, down in the lower right-hand corner, you can start to catch a glimpse of where the existing pool is, and you can start to see that that's the pool building. That's right. That right mark going across there is from an airplane, and that right there in the corner, in the crutch of that, is the roof of the pool house. So the pool house is up out of the flood zone, and the elevation is approximately the same elevation as the existing rec center, which is 1 foot out of the flood zone. So our process is structured over a couple different activities. First, and we do this on basically every project, especially when we work with municipalities such as yours. I think it's important that, since this is community dollars, to reach out to community and get their input on the project first and foremost, to make sure that as we're spending this money, the community gets what they want. Then we go into what we call schematic, and that's what we've done. And then we go into schematic design, and that's where we take that information, not only from the community, but from the administration, from council, and we start to do some planning associated with it. And then once we make a decision for where the site is, then we start to realize what this thing's going to look like. And that's when we get into design development, and then we go on to construction documents. That's where we put the technical drawings together. We'll advertise for bid, and then we'll get a contractor, and then we'll pull this thing out of the ground and bring it to a reality. When we started on the project, we realized just through the RFQ process that the City of Athens had some goals, and one of them was to incorporate the essence of Athens. I saw some images out here on the wall. We saw this as a very important thing to embrace. Is the site is not downtown. It's located over on the other side of town, and so we wanted to maybe try to bring some of that essence out to our oasis, if you want to call it that. That's what we were calling it very early on, and start to embrace that. Maximizing shade and green space, sustainable, energy efficient. There's the solar panel screens out there, so where we're trying to be sustainable and trying to continue down in that direction. Clean and easy, durable. Good sight lines throughout the parent and staff so they can monitor the whole project. And then maintaining some separation between the different users and the activities going on in the pool so everybody can have a good experience at the pool. The program itself, the items listed up here are actually bullet points, and it's a very brief summary of what was lifted out of the community engagement. We learned through that a main activity pool was something that was desired, zero entry. Spray ground was something that was desired. Lap pool. Originally, when we started on the project, it was identified through the previous report that was 6 lanes. Through the community engagement process, we learned that there was a desire or a want to have 8 lanes, and that's what, when we get to the slides, you'll see that. Water slides. Then obviously a pool house. You have to have, if you're going to do a pool like this, you have to have a pool house with showers and lockers and those sort of things. And then some of the site amenities. Grass and shade was spoke very highly of, as well as ample parking and shade structures and those sort of things. So some of the considerations, you heard me mention zero entry. That's what these are just some images of, and you can see the mushroom there with the water feature. I'm not going to spend too much time on these, but lap pools with the diving boards, depth of water. The lap pool and the depth of the water in the lap pool will sort of have an influence on the type of activities, whether it's volleyball or basketball, that you can actually pull off in there. So we have some basis of design for that. The environment. What's the pool going to look like? What's it going to feel like? And that's where I think we go back and we look at what the essence of Athens is and how do we pull that into the design. And then, shade and lighting is an important aspect. Slides, we learned, was an important aspect, as well as activities, pool activities, whether they're geysers or like, as I said, the mushrooms or buckets that spill and that sort of thing. And then you already have a climbing wall out there, but the image on the right hand of the screen, we did do a short presentation to some kids at a camp at the recreation center, and they were like screaming about these floating things and being able to climb over with them. So there's a lot of gravitation, from the younger kids to, these types of water activities. Okay. All right, so site number 1 is what I'm going to call it. This is the site that's over near the solar panels in the parking lot that's over there. We originally gravitated towards this site, one, because out of the community engagement, there was a lot of interest in this site, and there's a lot of potential here we saw. We could reutilize the existing parking lot. There's a lot of discussion about a future natatorium and where that should go. If you look up in the upper left-hand corner, there's a rectangular box there. That box is actually, we're proposing if there is a future natatorium, that it would be attached to the existing rec center at that point. You do want to consider attaching that to the existing rec center just from an operational perspective. You got a front desk, you got a staff, you got some level of locker rooms, you got utilities, and everything existing there. So if we can get that natatorium, even though it's not in this project scope to do it, but if in the future, if you can get it up in there and get it attached to that building, you're going to build it for much less per square foot than you would do if you took it and swung it to another part of the site. So we focused on that, And we focused on the idea is there might be this wanton desire to have this relationship between the natatorium and the new pool on the outside. So we extended the parking lot where the solar panels are down to kind of do a little loop or a drop-off zone there. If you look to the, right at the top of the site, that tan box, that's the pool house itself. So that would house the administrative for people checking in or checking out. There'd be a main entrance, so you can control that. To the upper corner of that, there is you'll see a blue dot. That would be the splash pad. And we located that there because the splash pad can extend your pool season. It's not required to necessarily have lifeguards or anything like that around it. So we could design a fence around it such that it could be open in May, the gates in front open to the parking lot in May, and then come June when the pool opens to the public, close those gates and then open gates on the other side so then it's part of the pool atmosphere. It's proven to be very successful on some other projects. And then the little circular element that's down to the lower corner of the pool house, that's a top pool. So quote-unquote baby pool. We like to call them top pools today more than anything. And then the main pool, as you come in, is you can see the graduation in the blue. That is the rec pool. So that's zero entry. It's on access with the pool, on a common access with the pool house, which is a pretty strong feature. So you got the pool house, you got the zero entry pool, and all the recreation components kind of tucked in around the pool house over here. And as you swing around in the upper corner, that's where the slides will be. They're just run-out slides. So what that means is you slide down and you go down to chute. They don't dump into the pool the way they do currently. And then the other pool that you see there is 8 lanes of lap with a dive well associated with it. And then the other tan building that you see where we're sort of reorganizing that drive at the end of the rec center, the other tan building would house the pool equipment. So we have to have two primary structures on the site. And you kind of want that pool equipment building to be separate from the pool house just because of what's going on in it, the chemicals and everything, out of sight, out of mind. And plus what it does is it gives us an opportunity to, because it's associated with the lap pool, we can tuck a few family restrooms up into that one and sort of spread those restrooms throughout the site so not everybody's always going back to the pool house itself. So there's a convenience factor in some of that too. One of the downfalls with this site, and if you need me to go back, I'll bring it up, is the flood zone. This entire site, if you remember that picture, was underwater. So in order to meet the standards set up by the Army Corps of Engineers, we need to bring the whole site up approximately 4 to 5 feet. And that's a lot of dirt coming in. So that's a big expense that we need to take into consideration. And the other thing, there's some unknowns that's on this site, and this is an unknown on the other site too to some degree, is that with the buildings, we have to get some get a geotech report and get some soil borings to see what we're bearing on. This is sort of an old riverbed, so it's suspect to maybe some sand or whatever that we may have to go down a little deeper. These buildings really they don't subject a lot of weight and everything, so I don't envision us having to go very deep, but there's some shallow pier foundation systems that sometimes we have to get into on them. And then a fence that would surround the whole site. And then site number 2, which is the existing site. So remove, and let me back up. If we build over there, we will still tear down the existing pool and just make this green space. So the existing pool site just becomes green space, additional green space for the park. So option number 2 is to go to the existing pool, tear down the existing pool, and build a new pool at its same location. Just like the other plan, at the top there's a tan building there. That's the pool house. To the right of that tan building is the splash pad. To the left would be the top pool. On a common axis is the rec pool. Zero entry. And as you go down, we were able to kind of work in a little green space in the middle, and then you have the 8-lane laps, the dive well, and then right in between it all is the slide structure. And then one of the nice things about this one is that, as with the other one, we're able to load the pool building from the outside, but this This one, we took the pool building, we shoved it to the left, and we can connect it directly to the road on the site. So chemicals and all that stuff coming in and out of the building can come. They don't even have to come into the site. They can stay outside the site and load the building in and out. And we can tuck probably some dumpster collection, back-of-house type stuff over in there too. We did extend and modify the existing parking lot a little bit, that lower bay, to kind of get some parking right up next to the site. And then we put that little connector in over there off the adjacent drive. So same program, same components, rec pool, 8 lanes, dive well, slide, all the program features are there. It's just different sites, because the sites tend to kind of, rule, in this case, some very important cost elements. So everything's there from an amenity perspective.
Okay.
Concession stand?
Yeah, concession stand is in the, in both cases, the concessions are in the pool house itself. So the pool house will have locker facilities, men's and women's, as well as concessions, all those features. Now, this site still does require some fill. On the south end of the site does start to taper off, so we're going to have to import some fill to pull it up to get us out of the flood zone. Not nearly the same as what is on the other, because if you remember the floodplain picture, you can kind of see in the corner we're pretty much up out of it for probably at least 50, if not 60% of the site. For right now, we still have to assume that we're dealing with some sort of sub-foundation system, but maybe not as extensive as the other site. But other than that, that's this site has a lot less risk associated with it. Now, the major difference between the two sites, I'm going to point this out again, is the natatorium feature. And the other one that I failed to mention was, this is right up on that main road, so it's busy. There's really no privacy associated with it. It's very much separated from the rec center, so you're going to one to the other. You need to weigh those and figure out what's most important to you in the big scheme of things. And I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. You've had a pool here for many years, so it's certainly done the job. So we took both sites and we looked at some cost estimates associated with each. I'm not going to go through each line item on these or anything like that, but there is 2 estimates in here. And the main difference between the 2 estimates is that if you build over where the solar panels are, that's probably going to be about $500,000 to $600,000 more than building on the existing pool site. So it's a difference of a construction cost, I should say, of a $6.7 million project over on the solar panel site versus basically about a $6.3 or $6.2 million project on the existing pool site. So, and there's contingencies built into that. So that's why I'm kind of loose with my numbers, is because I'm looking at them in a range of numbers. And I think after kind of going through the estimates and knowing where things stand, I think what we're dealing with on the table is about a $500,000 to $600,000 difference between the 2 sites that we can manage to. And that's really it. So.
Excuse me. This is a committee. It's not, like I said, it's not a public meeting. Members of the Finance Committee, any questions for our consultant?
Could you explain how the slide works again?
How the slide works again?
Yeah.
It'll be, think of a slide that has some curlicues in it, and maybe even a little tunnel or something piece to it. The big difference between the slide that's out there today and the slide we're putting in is this one is bigger. It'll have stairs going up to it, so it is much more of a tower, and you will spend some time on it. But the other significant difference is the one you have today dumps out into the pool. Mm-hmm. Okay, this one will be a run out, which means it's just basically a long tube, and you slide down and then you climb out. I assume you've seen them. I don't know, but
well, most of them run into a pool. That's like. So, okay.
It still has water on it.
It still has water in it. It's just that you're going down and your feet are in front of you, and you hit like a little shallow bit of water, and that slows you down, and that's when you climb out.
Okay.
Versus just plunging into a pool and then kind of catching yourself and getting up and then walking out.
And what sort of supervision does something like that?
What's that?
Supervision, like the one in Marietta?
On the run-out slide, you've got to have somebody at the top.
Okay.
And Tim, you have two. You have to have two. Okay. One at the top and one at the bottom.
Good. Okay. That's my questions.
Member Cochran.
Thank you. You referenced chemicals repeatedly in your presentation, and I know that's a big part of pool operation. And I know that at our public meeting, one of our citizens demonstrated concern about the use of carcinogenic chlorine in the pool and asked about the possibility of using salt, as has been used in more and more pools around the country. Is that factored into this presentation at all?
That is not factored into the cost right now. That is about a 10 to 15% roughly increase in cost to what you're seeing on the pool, just on the pool line items that you see, not on the whole cost, but just on that one category. So, it really it's a desire, and then whether or not the budget can pull it in. We just sort of did this on the basic specification. We haven't ignored it. Don't think that, but if that's something we want to do and we got to work it into the budget, then it's just a matter of getting the money set aside to pay for it.
Thank you.
Member McGee.
Thank you. I know many of the citizens are concerned that the pool might not be done in time for swimming next year. Is there any kind of indication as to if it were, at either location, the timeline for having it done?
Well, that's certainly something that plays into both of these sites. If we build on the alternate site, that gives us a little bit of opportunity. It's to get this other pool up and running, get your old pool up and running next summer until this one can come online. With the way things are bidding and the impact on construction in this environment right now, folks are busy. Tim and I were just talking earlier. He was talking to Patterson Pools. And Patterson's saying that they're booked through next year, basically already. So that's part of an issue. What I would suggest is that if you decide to build at the solar panel site, then hopefully we can get enough Band-Aids in place to get the existing pool up and operating. If you decide to build at the existing pool, then I would suggest we go through next season with the existing pool, and then bid this thing out, next summer, so that at the end of that next year's pool season, then we can start tearing it down and get it open by the following pool season. So we need basically that full year for construction almost. So, so-called 9 or 10 months.
Thank you.
Member Costa.
Okay, thank you. So, and just to review the numbers here, because I heard 6.7 million in the new site and 6.3 in the existing site.
That's construction cost only.
Yes, and that's only a difference though of $400,000.
Yeah, but that's why I said I'm kind of loose with my numbers. Okay, because this is it's a conceptual estimate. Okay, so I'm dealing with a lot of things where I'm building in some contingencies and doing stuff, and then I got to sort of sit back and look at where we're at. So, but the hard difference is the $400,000. But I think as we get into design and as we kind of start going forward with the project, that we can start to realize other savings and probably push that as high as $500,000 once we start to learn more about the project.
Okay, so the $400,000 is the fill, is to develop the new site to have it up to speed as the old
Yeah,
site.
there's a little bit in the building cost because if you remember I talked about the subsurface foundation systems, and so I lightened the building cost on the existing site a little bit.
Okay.
Is all I did per square foot, but that wasn't the huge impact. The huge impact in cost is just the fill. That really is the driver between the two sites. It costs a lot of money to get dirt and move dirt. I think if you look at that, it's pushing almost $40 a square foot. Or cubic yard.
And how many cubic yard do we?
I think it was like 25,000 or something like that.
Okay. My second question was just about the design itself and the zero entry pool. What depth does that go down to on the deep end?
3'6".
3'6". Okay. And let me, and of course, I'm not a pool designer, but my daughter and I, we do go to the pool quite a bit during the summer. She's 8. She's going to turn 9 here in November, and we hang out in the 7-foot section. She likes to dive off the deck, and if we keep 8 lanes open, I don't see that diving area that would be directly from the from the deck into the pool. I don't see that existing. Is that correct?
I guess.
I mean, would we just eliminate some of those lanes in order to get that type of
to get 7 foot
feature?
water with
a 7 foot so that kids can dive in from the pool
yeah,
deck.
well, the lap pool only goes down to 5 feet.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
4.
It is 7 at the one end.
Is 7 at the one?
It's 7 at the
Okay.
at the dive end.
At the deck where you can swim out
That's
into
right.
the lap lane area.
Yeah. And in all likelihood, how you would manage the lap lane, obviously it'd be highly dependent on lap swimmers. But it's planned in the furniture, fixtures, and equipment line item to have reels, for your lane lines, so it's easy to take them in and out. And so you manage the number of lanes that you need. But typically, you can get by with 4 to 5 lanes of an 8-lane pool throughout the entire day, usually less, so that pool ends up being larger water, for larger crowds, for those who would like to swim in the deeper water.
Because I assume you don't want anybody else just kind of hanging out in the dive tank. Like that whole dive tank would just be for you dive in, you swim out.
Well,
Yes,
yeah,
okay.
But sometimes, like at the pool I go to, where what they do is they shut the diving boards down and let kids have free swim in that area. So for like 15 minutes, and then they go back to the diving boards. So there's some little tricks like that you can do, and I want to point out. Yeah, Tim mentioned the lane markers. There was a lot of conversation about, well, that's going to take a long time and everything. Well, that's because right now what they're doing is they're just pulling them out of the water. When you get these reels, they're in and out within minutes. It's much more manageable.
Okay. They've changed things since 1971.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Member Butler?
Thank you. Again, I appreciate your time, and it's wonderful. We have a TV audience can't see us, but we have a great crowd here this evening. Again, shows the value and importance of exercise in our community and the input here. Regarding these drawings, and you mentioned conceptual, so again, these are estimates, and we can still deviate a little bit, my guess, as well, to the final desirable outcome. So if we want another amenity or two that haven't been included in this drawing or these renderings, am I correct in understanding that there's still wiggle room, obviously?
Yeah, it's all budget driven.
Yeah.
So if you come to me and say, I don't know, I want to do another 8-lane lap pool, well, you're going to need to go find another several $1 million. I don't think that's what's on the table.
Right.
But if you want to sort of contemplate some different amenities, I think one of the line items had on there was for just it's an allowance for amenities, and it's pretty. It's for the slide, some rock climbing walls, those paths that you walk across, and all that. I think I allocated maybe $300,000 or $400,000 for that. That's where we just sort of try to work within that number and get what we can. And then there's also contingency carried in that estimate, so we can always kind of balance some of that against it. But for where we're at, it's trying to identify a budget, and and it is kind of fluid until we get to the construction documents. So.
I have several questions.
Okay.
One is on siting. Did you ever consider maybe pushing part of the pool area closer to the building? I'm just kind of thinking of mechanicals and things like that in terms of bringing it all out into, that area. Did you kind of conceptualize that or look at that at all?
Which site?
Well, I'm the site of the solar panels.
The
that
site
site.
pushing it.
pushing it closer to the main building. So here's an idea that I think some in the community have wanted. We've got an 8-lane pool there, possibility of having that sprung over with a sprung design for the winter, so it could actually become a year-round effort. It is a nice-sized pool, the diving area maybe too, and if things were pushed back that way, maybe that would help accomplish that.
We did, one of our very early site plans was in the crutch of the rec center.
Yes.
And I think we had that drawn during one of the community engagement meetings. And what we learned as we started looking at that is we thought that it was too tucked away back there, and that the pool complex itself wanted to be adjacent to a parking lot. And that's quite frankly why we swung it around. And we felt like that even though it's swung around, that where the 8-lane pool and the dive well and all that ended up, that it was still, pretty close to the building. It wasn't, we didn't get too far away at that point, so you would still allow for that, that bubble that you're talking about to go over.
Do you think that could be placed there?
Well, again, that's a cost decision. The detail with that is if we're going to put a bubble over it, we're going to have to put build a foundation in.
Right.
So it can set on it. We're going to have to design our trench drains so it can go around it. We're probably going to get into some discussion about how you're going to store it, so we might be building a storage facility for it. I don't know. But yes, in any case, whether it's at the solar panel site or over at the existing pool site, we can design to that. I would encourage you to go visit some of these facilities because you're going to spend probably somewhere between $1 and $1.5 million doing this, and just kind of understand what that means and what you're buying. I'm not saying that's a bad number. It seems to be relatively inexpensive for what you're getting, but just to make sure it does meet your needs and what your expectations are.
And then what if we got the fill for free?
The fill is a little more complicated than that, and I think this is some technicalities that we got to work through with your administration. If we take fill and put in, whatever flood area we're displacing, we got to make up for elsewhere. Seems to be maybe some leniency on that apparently we can get through with some zoning changes and so forth that we've had some very light discussions on. So there might be some workarounds with it, but any suitable fill you get for free, you are definitely saving money. If it's fill that's, say, up in Logan, and you're bringing it down, then you're going to pay for that trucking
Well,
and
I'm
everything.
thinking of something within 3 miles away.
Yeah, and that's a whole different story. There's probably some some efficiencies in that.
Okay, so that would save some of this cost that you're saying.
A little bit. I wouldn't think of it as major costs, though.
Okay.
Yeah, you still got to bring it in. You got to compact it. You got to layer it in. You're not paying for the dirt. You're paying for the man hours. This construction is really driven by labor.
Okay. And then I did notice, just this is a more technical question on some of these features that we would be paying for. Does that, sounds like we would need more lifeguards than probably it sounds like these slides need more supervision.
Yeah.
I
don't know what your current staff is. We really haven't gotten that far with Rich and his group on that, but I would venture to guess based on your current pool configuration and everything, and then going to a new, you are probably going to have some staff needs for that.
Okay. And so the zero entry pool, if it was deeper, would you need more supervision over there? What 3.6 is, if a kid jumps in, they may hit the bottom. I'm just wondering, that seems pretty shallow.
You'll have lifeguards over there anyway with that. So,
Maybe they'll dive in that pool.
yeah, they probably
Right.
shouldn't be diving. Yeah.
No cannonballs, none of that.
In theory, none, yes.
Okay, so it just does seem a little shallow to me. I'm just throwing that out as a concern. Okay, those were my main questions.
Any other questions from any member council? Member Costas?
I'm sorry, just a quick comment. I think we have maybe 5, maybe max 6 lifeguards that are watching the pool. So I don't know how many, just looking at this site, do you have an idea about how many people would need to be?
You're probably in 7 to 8. Yeah,
Okay.
you're probably in 7 to 8. So, and as we get into design development and all that, that's where we'll start really evaluating that too.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions? Other elected officials, administration?
I have a comment gearing around the lifeguards concern. One of the things that is, after my visiting Marietta's pool, is that, and speaking with the director up there, is that the approach they take with lifeguards and hiring of lifeguards is you can hire a lifeguard down to age 15, which, as long as they're a certified lifeguard, which you can get your certification at 15, which really opens up some interesting jobs for young high school students who want to go on and become a lifeguard, which is essentially in the city of Athens untapped. It's not, OU doesn't use anyone. I don't believe they use anyone under the age of 18, and that's a guess. I don't know what their age requirements or limits are. Currently, for us in the city, it is 18, but that can be changed. That can be amended, and something I've spoken to Rich Campitelli about, thinking about the programming.
I think it's 16
when it comes
at OU.
to
16 at OU.
Is it? So this would open up, again, some opportunities for employment for young individuals, but also would help out with the lifeguarding. I've provided to council a number of letters that I've received over the past few days in regards to support for an outdoor swimming pool, as well as essentially a survey that went out to a rather large social media group here in the city of Athens. And what you've got is kind of a mix, but an overwhelming support for an outdoor pool, and a lot of people believing that that's what they voted for when they went into the ballot, ballots to vote. That's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll now open it up for 3-minute comments from people in the audience. To do so, please go to the podium, sign your name, and announce who you are. You'll get 3 minutes. Don't stampede, please.
It's a trick. There's no pen.
You have to provide your own. Warn you, our timekeeper is very strict.
So if
I have a question, I have to.
That's right.
Okay.
Not yet. You sign and then you speak.
You can go ahead.
You can wait.
You can write.
You should have spoken.
Yeah.
Sorry, you
It's
had
your turn.
We haven't started the timer yet.
Don't tell them that.
Hi, I'm Mark Barsamian. I live in Athens. Mike, I have questions about how these pool concepts fit into the city's ideas for improving the East State Street traffic situation. I've brought this up before. I'm concerned that the architects seem to have been given some kind of free rein as to where parking will be, where there will be entrances onto streets or not entrances onto streets. And my concern is that I really feel like those decisions should be being made by the city's planners and should be made before we site the pool, so that we don't make the traffic situation on East State Street worse and we don't end up being stuck with something that we then have to work around in the future. So I'm concerned. Can someone speak about those considerations, maybe Paula, or I don't know what the city has come up with in terms of possible changes to traffic flow.
I keep promising you, Mark, we're going to have those improvements on East State Street, and we really are. Later this evening, we're also going to discuss a possible additional connection. What we like when you look at the existing site layout, this will have a connection to East Park Drive, so it will be similar to where it is. There'll be traffic coming throughout here. I know a number of you have gone to the city pool, and you know it's not a racetrack. This is not going to be a racetrack either. We have to finish our site selection in order for the East State Street project to know that's where the pool is going to locate. And frankly, I feel like this has the least amount of interruption when it comes. And then those two signals would be programmed effectively for that use.
So you keep the existing signals at Charles Street and East Park Drive?
Yes. There is still discussion of a future additional.
Right, and there's also, I mean, it's a different, same topic, but it's not related to the pool, but there's still the East State Street improvements that are going to be going on, which is the 33 off-ramps, the improvements through ODOT, down there, but also throughout the whole east corridor of East State Street.
Would siting the new pool on the current site limit those options in the future? That's my concern. If we put if we pool in the site of the current pool, are we then sort of more limited than what we could possibly do with the East State Street interchange?
These have to be done concurrently. The projects are aligning. So this, when we have guidance, we're able to say this is the site that we're going, that's how it will be planned into East State Street. There's challenges on either side. Sorry.
I think we've got that question pretty much beat up. So are you satisfied with the answer?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let's move on. Next.
If they sign in, do they get 12 minutes? Is it 4?
They get 3.
She's reading comments from many, many children, so I just would like her to get
3 minutes.
She'll do it.
Hi, my name is Sarah Abdullah. I'm an 8th grader at Athens Middle School. I've lived in Athens my whole life and have enjoyed going to the pool many times over the summer. Some of the middle school students wrote how they felt about the pool, and here are some of their responses. I love going to the pool to be with my friends and enjoy the summer weather. I'd be very disappointed if the pool is moved indoors. My friends and I go to the city pool almost every day, and we love it being outdoors. We already have an indoor pool on campus, and an indoor pool would cost much more. I've always loved going to the city pool, and I'd be very sad to see it go. I hope it's not indoors because I don't want to be inside in the summer. I really like the outdoor pool and look forward to it every summer. Over the summer, I personally want to be out in the sun playing in the water. An indoors pool wouldn't be much fun in the summer because a lot of people like to be outside and cooled off. Also, we already have an indoor pool. I don't want another indoor pool. Part of the fun of a pool is being hot and jumping into cold water and shivering. Indoor pools aren't fun and are super cold and chlorine smelling. I love having the pool in summer. It's nice to feel the sun on my face and the cool water. The pool is a summer hangout spot. I go biking with my best friend, ride along the bike path, grab lunch, and go swimming. Why do we love it so much? We love to sit in the sun on breaks, enjoy cold treats, and then when we are hot, that first wonderful splash of cold water, nothing can compare. I feel a connection to the city pool. It's where I've spent every summer with friends and family. It's where you can relax and enjoy the summer away from school and drama. It's a place where you can be yourself and be happy. You can sit in the sun while you swim, hear the laughter of children, feel the summer breeze. You can sit in the lawn under a tree with your friends. You can buy ice cream, eat snacks in the sun. You can even conquer your fears of the water slide, just like I did when I was 10. The pool's a place where you can have fun, make friends, and be happy. That's not something you can take away. It's a place where our small-town community bonds, gets along, pauses all problems, and just lives in the moment. It's something that makes a big difference in our town. Please don't take the memories away.
Under 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Next.
My name is Lisa Mosier, and I am an architect also, and my background has been in community planning in other cities, so I've worked through that in community engagement process. I realize what you're showing tonight has been about site plans and just some general ideas of the design elements or features that would be included in a further design development. But I wanted to encourage the city, as you move forward with design development, to consider the possibility of asking to run a cost scenario for the kind of bubble that Michelle has mentioned. To those of you who don't know, this is a sort of membrane structure. They're generally air supported. I know there's an example on campus of a tennis structure that does have metal framing supports, but this is something that could be removed entirely in the summer, so I'm not sure if it would be objectionable to anyone who wants to have the summer experience because it would not impinge on that. However, given that there are some community stakeholders that feel that they would have preferred an indoor pool, this would be a possibility to extend the use of the pool into the winter months. These structures tend to be very cheap. I mean, what I'm seeing are maybe 1/10 of the cost of building an indoor pool. So this would be a smaller expense on top of the outdoor pool. So as I'm saying, I would like for the city to consider talking more to consultants about running that option, getting an idea of what, excuse me, what those costs would really be. And when you have an informed decision based on an estimate, other things like I'm sure you can find out performance of the system. It's not, I don't think, a huge deal to sort of contact manufacturers and get some numbers without a lot of work. And to go forward, being able to make an informed decision at a later point to see if we can meet the needs of the members, community members who would like to swim in the winter without interrupting that summer experience. Thank you.
Next.
I just have a few questions. How does the size compare with what we have now?
It is smaller water than you have now. The pools are designed for the age groups that are using them. So typically, when we've been replacing pools that are 40 plus years old, they all shrink because they're designed for the age groups, and you can be more efficient with it. So instead of having one big, large body of water with all the transitions in it, you have smaller pools that serve actually more people, but with less water.
When the age range, the 8th graders, they wrote a lot of things, and there was some suggestions, and I saw over and over again, they like it big. They want it bigger than what it is now. And I know it's big now. So I would say I don't have a concept of the dive area, but I can tell that this age especially, likes to dive in from the side. They like to do cannonballs in from the side. They don't want to just dive in and get out. I really think we need a lot of deep water for their activities. It seems like a lot of shallow stuff. And, my son, you guys are always, they want to be in the deep water. They want to hang out in the deep water. A few of the kids said right now they want more wall space in the deep end. Like they all like to hang out on the walls in the deep end. So I really think that, it seems to me, I know people like lap swimming, but unless maybe the lap pool could be deeper, because I don't think we should have a lot of pools that these kids can't dive off the side. I just think that's an accident waiting to happen. And, I hate to see smaller than what we have now.
The good thing about this approach of having separate bodies of water is that the lap pool can be as deep as you want. Okay. Right now, the starting block in is at 7 feet, and you can carry 7 feet out for as far as you want. Typically, the other half of the pool wants to be programmed so that you can do volleyball in the water, basketball in the water, which tends to be at 4 foot or so in there. And then the shallow pool, the zero beach pool, is obviously zero depth to the 3.5. So there's a 6-inch difference between the two pools. But with having separate bodies of water, you actually have more wall space, so it's like you have more frontage on the water. When you have two separate pools, you have more perimeter. So it's just a matter of managing that to what the community desires as far as depth.
So when they dive in that pool, is the deep end close to the diving end of that lap pool? Like, can you convert it so if there's not a lot of people doing laps, you can make them have a lot more activity in deep water?
Yeah. Depends on how many lanes you have open for lap swims.
Okay.
During the day, what we've witnessed in most pools is that you may have only 2 lanes of the 8 for lap swim. Okay. It could be more. It just depends on the community. But typically, 2 would remain open, and you would have to pick which side you would like to have it on. Typically, towards the end, when you have 3/4 of the pool open for all open swim.
So you think right now the design is sufficient?
We've hit 3 minutes. 3 minutes ago.
But I wasn't talking for 3 minutes.
Are you a lawyer?
Good comment.
No, it's Ann.
Hello, I'm Kirk Greenfield. I've been a resident of Athens for at least 25 years, and I'm a meteorologist. I appreciate the photo that you gave of the flooded area. It's not a question of if it will flood, it's when it will flood. And so I agree with the concept that if you're going to move some fill dirt from there to here, we really need that capacity. That's a very important point. My question is, when the flood occurs, and it will,
and it overruns, will it ruin the existing plumbing or the filtration system? And where do we go from there? You can't guarantee that it's going to happen, but that's my concern.
That's where, if let's say you pick the existing site to put the new pool, we would like to raise that a foot or two as well, just to try and get it up as high as the rec center. You saw in that photo how much higher the rec center was from that flood. The pool was actually very close to that flood elevation as far as the actual physical pool on that. So I think we want to buy ourselves a couple more feet on the existing site just to reduce the risk. There certainly could be a 500-year storm event that then all bets are off for the most part. But the idea is to try to minimize those risks to the pumps, because pumps would be the primary issue if you flooded it. Everything else, the pool, the water can be changed, everything else can go under. The building can even be designed to go under for a short bit, but it's the pumping equipment that is at risk for the pool house.
Okay.
So we're planning to be above the floodplain.
I applaud that. That's smart. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, I'm Martha Bishop, and I live in Athens, Ohio, and I'd like to thank the planners and the council for listening to the community's ideas about what we said we wanted in the community planning process. I'm especially happy that we're looking at an 8-lane pool for actual swimming, because I think there's a real need to have actual swimming for exercise. And I think some of the comments that were made about retractable lanes would be good, but it's bothering me a little bit that we're saying we could take out all but 2 lap lanes during the day, and then our pool really only is open during the day, so then what? Like, what are the 8 lap lanes for then? So that's one concern that I have, but maybe during, the part of the day when people are at work, that would like to lap swim, the lap lanes could be retracted, and then in the evening, or if there's an adult swim early in the day, then all of the lap lanes could be in use, and some of those could be reeled out, and then there'd be, I've been saying all along too, I think that there's a real need for the deep area for the older kids to have a place to swim and play and stuff. So I'm glad those things were heard, and I'm not sure what to think of the sites because I couldn't really see on the diagrams where they are in relation to the street, but maybe we'll get another chance to look at those at some point, I hope. So will those be posted somewhere where people can look at them?
Well, simply one site would be the existing pool, and then, Martha, the other site would be essentially on top of the tennis courts, if that helps.
So
for
that's
visual.
Behind the existing community center?
Correct.
In the back?
And filter would have to be brought in.
But there'd be a little bit of green space between the back of the community center and the bike trail, and where the pool area would be. Okay, that clarifies that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is this on the website, the drawings?
We can put it.
And make sure that they're the right side up. Mine's not.
Yeah. They're all over the place.
That would be nice.
I'd like to think I only had one question, but are your drawings dimensionally correct?
Yes.
And just off the cuff, what is the space from the softball?
Excuse me, who are you?
Todd Swearingen from Guysville, Ohio.
And you live
Still.
Good. For the record.
But, and from the Sally Port of the community center, moving towards the lap pool, you've got that square box that is technically reserved for a theoretical potential future natatorium. What is the distance, or what are the dimensions of that reserved space for the natatorium, just if you have it off the top of your head? The outside perimeter of the building.
I don't really call that one. It would fit at least a 6-lane. I think we had 6-lane pools and a vortex. And it's a lot.
Deck space, mechanical rooms, everything else, etc. But is that square basically dimensionally correct for a future natatorium? Okay. But, and that'll be available online for all residents and citizens to take a look at? Okay. Denny?
Oh, Mr. Mayor?
I just wanted a point of clarification because it's come up a couple times with the laps, with the lanes rather, being on these spools, and I just know this from having swam competitively for a large chunk of my life, that those spools to reel in the lanes, if need be, is not a long process to do. They can be reeled in fairly quickly, and then they can be laid back out fairly quickly as well. So it's not something that, like I said, it's going to be highly time-consuming to where we do sit there and have all the lanes open or the lanes gone for just a big open body of water, or to have it to where it's 8 lanes in there. You know, even if we wanted to think of possibly having some summertime competition swimming in that body of water as possible. It's because I think there's some confusion as to how these lanes, how difficult it is to roll them up. It's not difficult to roll them out if they're on the proper spools.
I think another just a benefit of having several bodies of water.
Could you come up to the microphone?
Oh,
I realized.
I'm up here.
That'll help us. Thank you.
Another benefit of having multiple bodies of water, which is where the plan is heading right now, is that you can, when there's swim meets, when you have a competitive swim meet or a lot of lap swimming, that can occur, and the other parts of the aquatic center can continue to run. So a lot of times we've seen where in summer leagues, if you have summer league swimming, and if you have a nice facility, then people typically will travel to your facility, and your local team will host. And each of these site plans, you'll notice that the lap pool can be easily separated from the rest of the complex. So you don't have to shut down your entire pool when you're holding a local summer swim meet. You just basically cordon off the area where the lap and the meet occurs, and the regular pool can continue to run. Slides run, top pool runs, spray. So we try and build in as a lot of flexibility into the site planning of these pools and the bodies of water, just trying to allow the most opportunity for your programming, which is what the mayor was talking about here a little bit. Is how you program it is what the community drives in that. And so we try to design the pools that it's kind of infinitely programmed. If you need 6 lanes running and only 2 swimming for a 2-hour period in the mornings or afternoons, you can do that. Can you do it? Can you take it up and down very quickly? So from a design standpoint, that's what we look at in each of these site plans and these pools when they're being designed. So just start thinking about your programming, as you're going forward. Hours, operation, clear lap swimming, open swim, dive being used for open swim instead of diving, the climbing wall interaction. There's just a lot of those things that come into play. And it won't be perfect the day you open it. You'll tweak it based on how people would like to use it or like to use it differently. So just something to keep in mind as you're going forward.
Thank you. Well, if there's nothing else, then I say that finance and personnel will move on to another topic. We have one more. 2015 Tourism Economic Impact Report.
Wait, no, you're not back. Wait a minute. Oh, I didn't get one.
I want one.
Thank you.
What's that noise?
Didn't know we had steam notes.
Does everybody have a handout?
No, I didn't get that one.
My favorite
Next
picture.
one? Okay.
For short one.
Thank you.
I don't want to slide it now. Settle down.
You're missing one what?
And,
Are we missing one, Chris?
One of these.
oh, we've got an extra one of those.
Oh, that That was hard.
Here, we got it.
Member Fall.
We can always make more. Well, this is like following the Von Trapp family singers or something. I'm going to be really brief here. I know everyone is really focused on the pool project. My name is Paige Alost. I'm the Executive Director of the Athens County Convention and Visitors Bureau. And I'm just here to talk with you just for a few minutes about some really good news. I want to make it really clear I'm not here to ask you for anything. That may change in the future, but I'm not tonight. So every other year through the State Division of Tourism, through the Development Services Agency, we conduct an annual impact of tourism assessment. And the report that is before you is a report that was released in June of 2016 for the year 2015. And you'll see we have previous studies that we'll reflect on beginning in 2009. And so we're just going to briefly kind of run through some of those of it. You can see kind of what our growth is. The full report is there, including the state impact survey. But for time purposes, we're just going to be talking about the Athens County impact. So if you want to scroll down to page 27, it will give you plenty of late night reading in the first 26 pages there. But we're very pleased to report in 2015, visitors generated $154 million in business activity in Athens County. This represents about a 10.3% growth over 2013, where we estimated an impact to be about $139.1 million. This is fantastic for us to be able to see this kind of growth. To give you an idea, in the early part of the report, you'll see the growth for the state over the course of 1 year has been about 3.5%. So for us to be able to experience this kind of growth in our county, not only one of the smallest counties in Ohio, but one of the poorest counties in Ohio, really represents an opportunity for us to continue to invest in tourism and to continue to enjoy the things that tourism provides to us, including additional sales tax activities, great businesses that we love, and strong importance in preserving our local environment and creating more additional outdoor recreation activities. So let's take a quick look at where some of this growth occurred. So we've got a very busy chart up there in front of you. I want you to pay very close attention to the three columns that are on this chart. So we have direct, and that is the direct exchange of money. So when a visitor comes to town, they spend a couple of bucks on something, that is a direct impact. Then what we see in the second column is the indirect impact of that, and that's how that business chooses to use that revenue that comes from the visitor to support their businesses, to pay their staff, to buy their supplies. And then we also see the induced benefit, which is the third time that dollar or that revenue turns over. For us, the induced is very important to us, which is why we include all three of these factors when we report that total number to you. In a very small town that has a very strong local economy where we're constantly talking to businesses about supporting other local businesses, sharing our resources together, buying and selling from each other to increase and elevate the products that we do create here, makes that induced impact, to me, just as important as the direct impact is. So those three things totaled together give us that $154.3 million. And again, I really want to stress, one of the things that makes Athens really so unique in looking at these numbers is our ability to operate a very small, localized economy. And that's also one of the things that attracts visitors to us. Okay, so you can see this by industry. This breaks it down a little bit easier than what the previous page did. Number one place that visitors spend their money here is retail activities. And why do we love that? Because it generates sales tax. And for us, it also means that people are engaging with local business owners, and they're taking things back home with them that they purchase in Athens, which is a great way to constantly remind themselves of their experience here. Food and beverage on the rise. We're going to take a closer look at that in a minute, but this is the thing that I'm most excited about in this report is our growth in the food and beverage sector. Lodging comes in kind of a drastic drop in third there, but what we've seen is a very sharp increase in lodging tax income and lodging revenue, not only in the part of an additional hotel that opened, not this past summer, but the summer before, but also in an elevation of those daily rates that they're able to capture from visitors. So in addition to having a property, being able to capture a stronger rate means that that sales tax and lodging tax also increases. You'll also see it by employment. The number one area of employment in tourism is the food and beverage industry. Then followed, you see that sharp drop there, by the retail trade. And a lot of that comes from the fact that it takes a lot more people to operate a food and beverage industry or sector than it does to operate a retail shop. But we do see that these employment numbers continue to grow. 1 out of every 9 jobs in Athens County is supported by all of these sectors of employment. We generate tax. This is my favorite thing about what we do, and it's not just about the lodging tax. Now, granted, that's how we survive. This is where our income comes from, is almost exclusively from the city and the county lodging tax. But we also generate sales tax. And while the city doesn't see a tremendous amount or any of the sales tax, it does go to support the things that happen within the county. And this also works to offset what local residents can be assessed through their property taxes and other ways that they contribute towards the county. So the more that we work to increase those taxes, the higher that economic impact is, the less it costs for our local residents to enjoy Athens County. Here's something I'm really proud of. This is a 7-year visitor spending comparison. So if we look at economic impact reports, which, by the way, have been conducted by Longwoods International, same company, since about 2003, I think. So you see in 2009, our total impact that year, $112 million. Now we're at $154.3 million. And that's just fantastic growth. I'll tell you, in evaluating our lodging tax income over the course of the last 10 years, we've not had a single quarter where we dropped. Not a single quarter. With the exception of one quarter where we had a change in ownership of a property. They immediately, once that exchange happened, then their lodging tax remittance was brought up to date. We've never had a single drop in 10 years. And this is remarkable, especially for a lot of other communities that suffered during the recession. And it says really a lot about the investment that our businesses make in their hotels and their restaurants and their retail shops, and the investment that the city and the county makes in making this a really special place. Okay, so when we look at the 5-year comparison over where people are spending their money, you'll see the retail trade still strong, at number 1. But check out the growth in the last 2 years in food and beverage. So food and beverage is just about $1 million under what people spend in the retail trade. And why is that exciting for me? Because it's one of the fastest growing, most positive identities that we have, not just in our city, not just in our county, but in our region. So when we talk about the craft brewing industry, when we talk about handcrafted spirits, distilled spirits, and wine, this is not only a fast-growing industry for Ohio, but it's something that we've really latched onto. We show a lot of promise and creativity in, and continued opportunities and crazy ideas coming out around it, which we really like. So this is the thing, out of everything that was presented in this report, the thing that I was the most excited about, because it does require so much investment, and I do see it as a long-term identity for what we offer. Please take note of the recreation and entertainment. It seems to be the thing that people know the most about us. Great outdoor recreation, great entertainment. Why is it low compared to retail or food and beverage?
It doesn't cost much.
It doesn't cost a darn thing. And it's not taxed. So if we look at the Hockhocking-Adena Bikeway, we can say, well, it's open 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, multiple entrance and exit points. So really, in looking at that, we can assess it and say, well, we're seeing still some growth there, but how can we leverage that bikeway into something that does create a taxable activity or does attach it to the food and beverage industry? And I can assure you we are working very hard at coming up with some great concepts for next year that will leverage what the bikeway offers into those areas where we're seeing the most significant growth. But still, recreation and entertainment for us and what people request from us is still one of those top things and one of the things that we're most proud to be able to offer people. Okay, that's the end. You'll also see a little fact sheet on here that will kind of give you just some brief facts and figures, just some little tidbits of information. People always say, well, how do we assess economic impact? They look at sales tax, lodging tax, your local population. They look at trends within your own state. And then from that, they assess certain little tidbits of data, like a person who stays overnight spends an average of $354 per person. when they stay, versus a day tripper who spends an average of $110. When you assess the fact that 79% of our visitors are day visitors, and only 21% of those are overnight stays, we continue to refer to that as staggering opportunities for growth there. There's a big difference between $110 a day and $354 a day. Statewide tourism generated $49.7 billion in visitor spending in 2015, still continuing to grow for the state of Ohio. And we're very pleased to have Tourism Ohio and Development Services to be able to support what we do on a local basis. So I'll be coming back to you in November with an overview of what our lodging taxes look like this year. That will be equally as exciting. For a refresher course, we have a county tax at 3%. We have a city tax at 3%. We receive 35% of the city tax. We receive 95% of the county tax. And right now we operate on a budget based on last year's numbers hovering right around $500,000 in income. So you can figure 35% of that comes from the city. So actually about 30%. So are there any questions? I promise to be brief.
Members of council? Member Pappy?
Yeah, I just wondered, do you think some of these increases have to do with the opening of the 4-lane around Nelsonville?
I think it does. I think it's a lot easier to get here. And really where we see some of that increase, it opens the doors for visitors to get here and makes it easier. But really where we count on that increase is in the midweek business travel, particularly those who are truck drivers, delivery drivers, construction workers, those kinds of things, where it's just easier for them to stay here, even if they're working regionally because of the bypass.
Thank you.
Member McGee?
Thank you. Are you making any plans for what to do when marijuana is legalized?
It's funny, that's a very hot topic of conversation in our office. And we have some very funny slogans that we've come up with just in preparation for it that kind of tie into some other things, and we laugh all the time about it. I'll share it with you. It's roll with it. We're just going to roll with it. And I think if marijuana does become legal in Ohio, it's really going to what we do will be determined on how the law is set up, as far as where the dispensaries are, who can engage in it, and we're going to take direction from that. But certainly. If it's something that we have to capitalize on, it certainly is. I'm gonna rank it up there with other recreational things that people do, including craft brews, outdoor recreation. My friend Karen Raymore, who's the Hocking Hills Tourism Association director, I pick at her all the time and I say, "You got 2 things to market, man. You're so lucky. You got dills and hot tubs." Well, we've got craft brews, outdoor recreation. We're a well-known college town. We have a tremendous arts upbringing here, and then we have fantastic small towns to offer with lots of festivals and great events to go to. So we're kind of challenged in having so many things to be able to market, and each of those has sort of a little niche following that goes with it. And so, if marijuana becomes legal, it's going to rank right up there with some of the other more popular things that people can do here. So, but yeah, a daily conversation in our office about that. So.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Mayor?
I have a comment. it's outstanding looking at these numbers and the things they're projecting for 2015. It really kind of stresses and drives home the point that, first impressions go a long way. And for us to be able to improve our city's infrastructure and streets, kind of goes hand in hand with this report. You only get one first chance to really show what you have to offer and to make yourself look attractive. And I think timing is everything with this, and looking at this particular report and keeping this thing rolling. Because yes, this has been linear, the level of growth. But I think that from the city standpoint, we can do better to aid that becoming exponential as opposed to linear.
Right, and I think that's part of the experience and understanding of the report is seeing where your opportunities lie. We use data to drive the decisions that we make in advertising, to drive the decisions that we make in the time of year that we know we need the business versus when we know we have the business. And this kind of report offers the same kind of opportunity for the city of Athens to assess where they are. So if we're seeing strong growth in food and beverage, open the door for more of that to happen. Sometimes it means creating a variance. Sometimes it means rezoning certain sections. Sometimes it means annexing additional property, whatever it is that you have to do. But I think if you look at this report, you'll clearly see where the direction that the city needs to go in fostering their business environment and the environment for entrepreneurs to be able to come up with even crazier, wackier things to do. But certainly projects like the Essence of Athens, the overall appearance of your town and the way that it immediately welcomes people is something that people already positively comment on, but I think there are additional things that you can do and that you already have in plans to do that will continue to make that better. So,
Member Butler.
Thank you. I just had a brief comment as well. Since Paige, you acknowledged the growth in food and beverage and the need for us to be flexible in thinking about, and I'm paraphrasing it, but the need for us to be flexible in thinking about our zoning because our neighborhoods are pedestrian friendly, and perhaps we need to revisit and look at the opportunity for growth there with business related to food and beverage. Thank you.
And really anything that you can do, and there are lots of trends that are out there. I know, Chris Fall and I have talked extensively about the bed and breakfast legislation, and of course the Airbnb conversation that goes alongside of that. But really, that legislation is intended to capitalize on unique lodging opportunities, and I think that having the more walkable neighborhoods, more pedestrian-friendly communities ties directly into that concept of unique lodging. One of the things that we don't have, and hopefully we're going to have in the future, is an opportunity for unique lodging uptown. And we'd really like to see more commercial growth in that. And when we say commercial growth in unique lodging, we're not talking about Airbnb. We're not talking about spare room lodging. We're talking about the development of bed and breakfasts, inns, and additional places for people to stay that are within walking distance of the main entertainment areas of the city of Athens. And that is something we really need to capitalize on. And it's something that people call us and ask for. They want to be able to walk. So yeah, very important.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Thanks for not ringing the 3-minute bell at me.
You get all the time you want.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
If you have additional questions about the report, please feel free to call me. I can email all of you. I'll forward that to Debbie Walker tomorrow, but a full email of the electronic report. But the paper report you can mark all over. So.
Oh, thank you very much.
All done.
I like good news.
I do too.
That's all that I have under Finance and Personnel. So my committee's closed.
We'll move on to City and Safety Services Committee, and that's chaired by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. I'll try to be brief as well, since we do have a lot left on the agenda and there's something else on TV tonight worth watching. Briefly, on the first item on the agenda is the depot lift station, and there is a need for increased appropriation. About $30,000 are needed to complete odor control at the depot lift station. That's just been a recent acknowledgement from the mayor's office. Anything else on that?
Just that this is for odor control, $30,000 for odor control elements at the Depot Street lift station. So we're talking about, a further appropriation of that from $750, which already has $450,000, $412.95. So it's needing authorization from council.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Pappy?
So my question, Mayor, is wasn't that part of the initial odor control? Wasn't that part of our initial specs when we did the depot lift station?
Absolutely. It's actually pulled from the general contractor in order for us to get cost overruns are what they are. And so we're getting those elements in, and then they're installed.
Okay, so it wasn't a part of the original.
The scope changed a bit. No, odor control was always involved in part of that.
That's what I thought. I'm just asking.
It's just more expensive.
It's more expensive than what they initially suggested, or in the.
If you recall, this is a critical infrastructure CDBG grant, and under that model, we wound up through the contract having to pay HAPCAP for their administration and their assistance through that. And I think that it just is kind of we need the additional authorization right now. We're not saying an appropriation. That'll be determined by law or something. But odor control was always scoped as part of this. costly. If you recall, even at the wastewater treatment plant, it took us a while to kind of get that balance going. And we're just doing the deepest dive into that to get it in place.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments from council members or questions? Public? Thank you. The next item on the agenda this evening is the city water treatment plant, and I believe that the administration has a few comments regarding those upgrades. I know Councilmember Reisner had been present at some meetings earlier in the late winter, and administration has some more information for us regarding that.
We have been selected from Ohio EPA to submit for the Water Supply Revolving Loan Fund. We put in an application back in March. I believe you were participating in that. This is to apprise you that we have been selected. We're going to go through the process for their funding. Right now they have a standard rate that's at an all-time low. No guarantee. It changes month to month. But we plan on coming to you and requesting design engineering services prior to the end of the year. The question that we've discussed this in the past is whether or not we're going to take out a local loan. Thank you. As opposed to
at the low interest rate of 0.45. But this phase one of this project is about $7 million to start work, much needed work on plant one of the two plants that are at the water treatment plant.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Service Safety Director. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Pappy?
So on the water treatment plant, is any of that tied into our water wells? I know that, several years back, we appropriated money for the drilling of another well. I don't believe that's occurred. We've done quite a bit of work on our existing wells. I walked down there, so I see. And so there's constantly work being done on those. So I believe that some of those may even need to be replaced. I know they're very old. And so none of this this isn't part of this plan. And I just think the community needs to understand that these are separate entities.
For the wells themselves. Sure. Yeah, what you're talking about is maintenance on the wells. There's been a lot of maintenance on the wells over the past several years, but that's not part of this. This is for the plant itself. The plant, if I'm not mistaken, was originally constructed for plant one in the late 1950s, and plant two was in the late 60s. So it's an aging plant. So these are a lot of upgrades that are needed, and in particular electrical upgrades. There's 3 different levels of electricity running into that building, and so part of that would be corrective, so that we have one voltage coming in as opposed to a whole sundry, and one of which, one of the 3 that currently comes in is a very old system, which is hard to find parts for. We get parts when we need them, but it's a system that is primed now that we have a wastewater treatment plant that's been upgraded. A water treatment plant logically follows next to have those upgrades made.
And I would just say the community, in general, people are very concerned about their water these days. There's a lot of concern out there with treatment and what's happening in the communities with different chemicals and different things. So the upgrades would be something this community would obviously benefit from. Our water quality remains very good, and we monitor that very closely. But
yeah, we have a lot of old switches inside the pump, the plant one and plant two. So this would be correcting that to where we have state-of-the-art switching that goes on. We have some pneumatic systems inside the building, which is old technology for any plant. The bond council has also been apprised of this project rolling forward as well.
And to speak to your question on the well, a new well, that's still being explored. But a radial well we may not have that land. This is the next endeavor that we're.
President Nisley, thank you.
Two comments and one question. council members have been able to go on the annual tour, and so we've taken a look at some of these planned for upgrades to the water treatment plant. So it's not surprising. But do we have a timeline, just an approximate timeline, on when this would actually, some of the improvements would take place?
The RFQ is out now, and then they'll ask from there select proposals, looking to try to lock in the dollars for design at the end of this year. So I would assume sometime 2018.
2018?
2018. Okay, thank you.
2018. And the total payment amount on this for phase one, just so the council's aware, is $7,140,000.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Cochran.
Thank you. I know several of us have asked in the past from Director of Public Works if this project might include solar panel installation to help provide the electricity needed to power the water treatment plant. Is that possible? Is that included in the scope of this project at this point?
It's certainly something that I've asked Andy to look into so that we have some solar or alternative energy opportunities behind the meter so that we incur further cost savings. I've also asked him to look into what's referred to as inline turbines, where for your main coming off of the wastewater treatment plant out to the distribution system can recoup some of that energy via hydro turbines and feed it back into the plant itself to help bring down electric costs at the plant. As you guys are aware, or hope you are, is that a water treatment plant as well as a wastewater treatment plant are some of your biggest energy consumers within the city for the city's mercantile accounts, and in particular the water treatment plant because of all the pumps. Lots of pumps to include the field and at the plant 1 and plant 2. So it's being looked at, see what we can do. It comes down to cost, but it's something I'm certainly keen on exploring, especially the micro hydro off of the water main.
Mayor, I'm curious as well, and you may not have the answer to this. It might be something that we'll need more discussion with our engineer, but UV light also consideration for some of the bacteria killing aspects needed to purify the water. I don't know if that's in the discussion or a potential rather than adding chemicals like chlorine, et cetera.
Right. That I don't know if Engineer Andy Stone has been looking at something like UV. I don't know. It's a question that can certainly be raised.
Because I think we did implement UV at the wastewater treatment plant.
We did. We did. And that was the final treatment before is the effluent discharge.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilman McGee.
Thank you. Just one question. Is the fluoride for the city, is that added at the water treatment plant or somewhere else?
It is.
And has there been any kind of study to see whether that should be added or any kind of discussion about continued adding of fluoride? I know there's been some discussion concerning some of the recent events of some chemicals being spilled in some rivers as to whether the companies that make the fluoride, whether this stuff is actually hazardous to human health. And I'm not an expert on it. I don't take either side on it, but people have expressed concern to me. So
I've heard similar concerns. What I can say is that it's either Public Health Department or it's through U.S. HHS, Health and Human Services. The most recent recommendation is to drop it down to 0.7 as your minimum allowable to put in, and I think that that's pretty much what we track with the city as well, is follow. But it used to be higher than that. It used to be almost 1.0, somewhere in that range, and then has dropped down to 0.9. But until we get guidance from the federal authorities to be able to change the fluoride levels, we have to take their lead in terms of doing it, rather than be in violation of federal law.
That's where we are.
Okay.
We're actually, I think we're still at the one point waiting for EPA to say, yes, you can reduce it to that 0.7, and they haven't. And this is law, as the mayor indicated. We would be in violation if we reduced it prior to them authorizing it. Well, I can.
Well, and there is also Ohio Revised Code that has, because we've had this discussion before, a long time. And, I think that the city engineer would like to reduce it and such, but we can't by law. So if you're concerned about fluoride, then let your local, representative and senator know, because the city can't do anything about it at this point. Please don't come ask us.
Good question.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Madam President. I am concluded.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to Transportation Committee, and that's chaired by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you, President Nisley. Our first committee item is the West Union Street streetscape. Administration wanted to present the current plan. Is this going to be up on the TV here for folks?
I believe so. We've seen it.
Do you know, Ryan, if it's back there?
Okay.
It was kind of late. That was the last one. I was having some technical difficulties.
Okay, so hopefully it'll come up here in a moment. Maybe we can get started. Maybe administration can bring us up to date as to where we are and what's going on. Realizing this is the block between Court Street and South Congress and where the fire occurred. So this is the ongoing efforts to improve the street there since the fire.
Which is an ongoing process because of construction in that area, still construction going on, and then waiting.
Are we looking at the top? Are we looking more at the top? I guess. Thank you.
Correct. Here you were looking at the corner, if Ryan would stop for a minute. Here you're looking at the corner of South Congress and West Union. So South Congress, if you would, BW3s would be on the lower screen here across the street. And the bump outs being there. Now, if Ryan could scroll to his left, our left, or right.
So we're traveling east towards Court Street.
Correct. Now here we are at Court Street. Court Street and West Union, again with the curb bump outs at the intersections, which shortens the distance in which someone is crossing over in a north-south, south-north direction, whichever. There's several tree wells that are in here. There's, again, on the north side is the extension of the sidewalk 4 feet out beyond its current curb, and then the bump outs beyond that. We've gone through this before with we've actually, with having compact car parking, there's an increase in parking in this area by a couple parking spaces. And there has been some road dieting. The traveling width of the streets has been reduced to accommodate the sidewalk enhancement on the north side. Originally, engineer Andy Stone had spec'd out $75,000 for the project, but in looking at the planning for both sides of the street, so that we don't have one side that looks nice and the other side does not, doing brick inlay on the south side of the street, and again, as I mentioned, putting in a couple, multiple tree pits, but also putting in some other features like those larger planters along there and some park benches, as well as bike racks near the bump outs that you see on both the east and the west stretch of West Union here, between Court and Congress. And then we were talking about the parking kiosks, having a parking kiosk on each corner, or inset a little bit. They'll still be associated with those curb bump outs for the crosswalks, but having the Park Mobile kiosks and no parking meters on this stretch. Everything will be Park Mobile driven But again, the parking spaces will be painted on the surface, and then the roadway resurfacing as well.
And just a reminder, it's 2 lanes of traffic, parking on each side with these modifications, like you said, the traffic or lane dieting, as we call it. So we're going to, what are our lanes going to be?
11 feet, I believe. They're rather large right now. I believe that they are 13-foot wide travel lanes. Under ODOT, they can be shrunk down. I have a hard time saying dieted down, right? Shrunk down to 10-foot wide travel lanes, but city engineer feels that 11 will work better in this area.
Member Butler.
Thank you, Councilmember. Friendly reminder that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to implement the essence of Athens with our design here, whether we're looking at bike racks or the benches, the planters, they all can be that unique, special, fun, Athenian feel. And again, I'm excited about that with this project. Thank you.
Member Fall. Thank you. I personally think that this is a great way to go because it can show how you can have sidewalk improvements and pedestrian-friendly and bike-friendly improvements and still have that balance. And maybe people on Court Street, when we start talking about some of this stuff, will see how well it works. And I personally think that the bump outs where pedestrians crossing is a great safety feature. And even if we aren't doing much on the other parts of Court Street, that somehow gets put on the kind of the fast track, because I think all of them should have bump outs. And it's just, there's no reason to have people doing 35 or 40 miles down Court Street. And it's traffic calming. I'd like to see it kind of almost like a policy of almost any corner that we create. So I just traveled to a city that had lots of people and lots of cars. And it worked really well. So
I'm excited to hear you say that. We way back when this first rolled out, under a fair amount of controversy, and then but we've worked it through. One of the ideas was that this does become a street that we look at how we can possibly rethink all of Court Street from end to end.
Yeah, and I would commend the planning process that this went through. And we've come together with a lot of the different people that have a lot of different concerns.
Any other members? Thank you. Member Costa?
Yes, thank you. And I hope as this gets installed, that we it's something that we can kind of test out and see how it works. And I hope we're flexible enough to make changes to it, because as I did state before, I believe we are detracting from the bike friendliness in this block with this design. And I'm not going to go into detail on that, but I do want to just state that case that we've had quite a few comments in the last few months about students arriving and riding on the sidewalks in the downtown area, and with the wider sidewalks and the more narrow streets, it's an invitation, and so we will have to think about this and try to address it as we move forward and see how this goes. So thank you.
One thing we haven't heard is what the cost increase will be.
Oh, did I not tell you?
Or maybe I missed it.
$160,000
So we pretty much doubled it.
to do both sides of the street with all the improvements.
That includes post-design, so it includes the design, my understanding is, and that is out to bid, and then we open it next Monday. So,
It's out to bid for this design and engineering.
we open it next Monday. We're hopeful we get some bidders. There's a number of plan holders, although as you heard tonight, people are busy. Contractors are still busy. So there may be something we're requesting for as of
Any
next
questions
Monday
about
after
the
we open the
amounts
bids.
on council? Any question about the amounts?
Where are we getting the brick?
Wait a minute, it's not.
It's not brick. It's something else.
I don't know.
I think we're using our original. We found some of those that we used
And some might be coming from other places from around the city.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
We can pull them up from campus.
There was that big building that just came down.
Those we were not using. There are elements that we may use from that demolition, but not the bricks.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yeah, that could be happening as part of this streetscape design, is that there's some elements from the former PSAC building.
And the money is coming from what line?
Well, I guess we'll work with the auditor's office to determine.
Street fund?
Likely.
Makes sense.
Middle Street.
The auditors.
Member Pack. Councilmember Pack.
Okay, Member Copper.
I would voice a concern about the doubling of cost when we consider that each summer we have an allotted amount of money that goes into annual street repair. And if citizens going into this planning process thought we were going to be spending $75,000 on this project, and now we're spending double that, that means potentially less money for our annual street improvements, less money to spend on filling in the potholes that will be popping up here in a few months. So that does seem like a concern to me that we're...
Well, the budgeted street paving has been in place and has pretty much been completed for this year, and then we'll be budgeting for next year. So that'll be a separate budgeting process for 2017.
Right, but my understanding is this was not an originally budgeted project. You budgeted for $75,000 to spend on this project, and now it's going to be twice. That money's coming from somewhere. So it's less money to be spent overall on other projects.
Thank you for the question, Member Cocker.
I'm not sure what you're seeking.
I'm
A response?
not either.
Other than we recognize
It's a
that, yes, the
concern
cost
that I'm
of it.
sharing,
Okay.
and I think that citizens might be concerned about that amount of money.
Any comments from the audience? Fine. Can you come to the podium, please, and sign in? Thank you very much.
I had a question about the, I'm Melanie Shore, I live in Athens. I had a question about the mobile parking. Would that require people to have an app to use on their smartphone the way it does many places on campus? There are places now where you cannot park on campus at a metered spot unless you have the Park Mobile app on your smartphone. There are people who don't have smartphones.
Sure. That's a great question, because the idea is if we're having kiosks, the kiosks you can pay, I believe, with cash or with a credit card. You're right that there are a number of people who don't have smartphones to use Park Mobile, but it will have Park Mobile capabilities as well. So,
Okay, that was just my question.
yeah.
Good question. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Any other comments on streetscape? Okay, let's move on to the East State Street expanded scope. Last week I became aware of a presentation that occurred regarding an expansion, if we want to call it the Home Street Connector. That's what we have on our agenda. And I also learned that there have been discussions with the university, so I felt counsel. We've had one conversation on a street tour from administration about the possibility of this, but I thought since it's out there being discussed in the community at this point, that we as council needed to have a more formal presentation, discussion, however administration wants to do that. So that's what we're
here to discuss tonight. I think the best thing is to start with administration. We do have this. I don't know if they're going to put it up on the on here as well. I have to find it. Oh, Home Street. There it is. Okay. So we should have that up here on the TV as well. So Mayor, Service Safety Director, I'll let you all kind of bring us up to speed on what you're discussing in the community.
Sure. I mean, as on the street tour, this was a stop along the way. You can look at the existing CSX railroad overpasses, if you will, or underpass, which you see in the center of the screen, 33, and as our city engineer has stated, that you're looking at for that underpass or the bridges themselves. We're looking at about $20 million worth of infrastructure sitting there that 33 traverses over. And in thinking about the community center campus, thinking about the pool, thinking about a number of things, and to think through the ability to reduce the travel load, small but somewhat, off of East State Street as we continue to develop that area, is utilizing this underpass to some degree. The city engineer did reach out to the new director for the public libraries, library system. Thank you. And engaged with this possibility of either having a connector that runs underneath 33 and then makes a right and then a left again to connect to Home Street, or another option to where it goes straight through following the CSX railroad bed, the former railroad bed, and then taking a right and connecting to Home. In that conversation with Mr. Tempe, thank you, that his preference for this, whether he was indifferent, again, this is in Engineer Stone's terms, fairly indifferent to the blue outline that you see there, that he would prefer the orange connector instead if it were to travel through there, with the hopes that there wasn't two that go through there. In other words, start with the blue one and then eventually the red one. This also, for 10, 15, 20 years down the road, opens up some other possibilities with having this connector along there. So we're just apprising council of a concept that's being thought through.
And frankly, cost estimates are to come, because we do have money from the East State Street project.
Where do we have extra money for the East
He
State Street
indicated
project?
that the stage one cost estimate was less than the grant request. So this Home Street connection, we would build this as a phase 2 of the East State Street project. It's really not something completely new. It's been discussed in the past. The library did ask for a true connector down to the bike path as a possibility with this project. Also said a lot of children like to learn how to ride bikes. They check them out and they want to, we haven't figured that out, but have a little area where you can learn how to ride a bike. And a signal out at Home Street on East State Street.
Kind of going off of what Service Safety Director just mentioned with this making an interesting loop. Again, this is all concept, but if this, one of the ideas would be that this would be a road that also has bike path that runs with it, essentially kind of making it a complete street underneath there, and maintaining the existing bike path as it sweeps underneath, right next to the river, underneath 33, and then with a bike path coming down off of what you see in the bottom right left-hand corner, where you see the T where it connects to Home. The bike path connector that comes down through there would create this kind of natural learn how to ride bicycle loop with the library's bicycle program.
Could I ask that the picture be moved the opposite direction so we could see the community center campus a bit more? Because I know we discussed that. So to the south, I guess that would be. East,
It really
sorry,
like picks
to the
up
east.
East Park Drive.
So
Yeah,
there we
that's
are
it.
at East Park Drive, the CVS there. The pool, current pool is to the top right corner. So that is the community center campus. Just so people can see that. So
The dog park's in the middle.
dog park is there in the middle. We do, of course, know that ODOT is going to widen the exit ramps, and the turn lanes on East State Street will be dual lanes for turning, and all those kinds of things. That's on East State. So I think the design concept here is to somehow free up traffic off of the East State Street corridor to help with the congestion. I do know we still have some people here, Mark left, who are concerned about that. This is one way to possibly resolve some of that congestion. My concern is if I lived, now if you could pan back to the library side, please. If I lived in the R1 residential neighborhood to the left of Home Street, which is very residential and very pedestrian, wow, that's a lot of traffic potentially that could be kind of dumped into that area. One of the things I was thinking about is the CSX continues to go straight. Could this be considered maybe going and tying into our new roundabout as a way to funnel traffic off of East State rather than into this area, which will potentially go back onto East State Street just at another intersection, or, as many people will do, they will drive through that neighborhood, which I'm sure that neighborhood does not want to happen. But have we thought about that extension, which would probably be about what you would be building there if you used the blue option, but extend it down on that railroad and then somehow hook it back up into the Stimson Avenue roundabout? That seems to make more sense to me rather than going into a highly residential area. So that's just something I have in my head, and I'd like to open it up to Member Fall.
So you wanted the red and the blue?
No.
Just the red or the blue?
Red or the blue.
Okay. I know that
I think yellow's out.
the blue, you would reduce the amount of interaction with the residential sections on the picture left, because right there you start going up into the VFF, whatever veterans thing, and the hotel and the Chamber of Commerce. So that has very little amount of
But it still comes up on East State.
Right, but that corner is not residential as it stands now. I would be very concerned about the red one, because first of all, that's kind of like that's how you get to the bicycle path from a lot of that neighborhood. And I think one thing about the library and how it was designed was that you look out the windows and you do see the freeway and that really lovely gash that they made, but it's also like the open, and when there's water and the hawking, it's much more of a pleasant feel than having a street that goes right in front of it. And I think if I was a library person, I would have some concern about that. It goes right through where the little amphitheater is. We cut off a lot of the space that you can, when they used to have things going on down there.
There was some conversation about avoiding the amphitheater, of having the road jog slightly to the south around it and then continue on.
Right.
But what I was sharing with you was basically, the director's preference, if this is going to go through one way or the other, to not eventually, someday, 20 years down the road, where the library is completely enveloped by roads all the way around it, by having the blue go through and then the orange goes through later or something. If it were to ever want to tie into the Stimson Avenue roundabout, We are exploring some possibilities of a joint facility between the police departments, fire department, EMS, sheriff's department, whatever, and trying to figure out where the best place for that to go is too. So there's a lot being explored in here, but we're just sharing with you the different concepts for this.
And I would just like to remind people about the fight that happened over this whole area 10 years ago. This is a very beloved area, and I know that my email is now going to burn up with you just saying that, to tell you the truth. So, there is some right-of-way issues in there too. So,
any other council members? Member Cochran?
I'd like to speak to this issue. Of course, I am biased on this front, having gotten my first job in Athens at the public library. My children spend countless hours there, and I can't believe that anybody who thinks that this is a good proposition or a good plan has spent much time at the library at all. Because if you want to look out the bank of beautiful windows and see a street where children fly kites and play with hula hoops and have story times currently, then I have a hard time believing that. So, I think that this would have a serious deleterious effect on the library and its programming, the safety of the many children who spend time there, both inside and outside the building, and the many pedestrians and bicyclists who enjoy using this space as a recreational area, not to mention which the R1 neighborhood right there with, condominiums backing right up their backyard would now essentially be a street. So I have major concerns with this proposal, and, I think that we're jeopardizing the quality of one of our valued local institutions for the benefit of another. If we're saying, okay, we're concerned about the farmers market and the traffic that we're going to increase traffic that we're going to generate, so we're just going to put it in another road right next to the library, that'll solve the problem. I don't think so. So that's my 2 cents.
Is this?
Thank you, Member Cochran.
Is this because the red one, especially the red route, or either one of them?
Well, especially the red one, but the blue one would be deleterious as well, because you've got, the library parking lot is constantly full on Saturday mornings when they're having library book sales or programming. Folks go to the library to get their books. People are going to be wanting to use that parking lot. Stop there, park, go to the farmer's market. And so that's going to, again, generate increased traffic for the library patrons. And I think that that's, again, a dangerous interface to have with, we have increased traffic for folks who want to be going to the library as well as folks who want to be going to the farmer's market. Of course, we want to see both institutions succeed, but I don't think that this is the way.
I would just add again that we need to be very cognizant of a residential neighborhood there and protecting that. And I know that the mission here is to alleviate traffic off of East State. That is the mission. And I think we need to think long and hard about how we do that. And the way you mentioned it, for the benefit of one to possibly be detrimental to another is, I think, an interesting way to look at it. Member Costas.
Thank you. And that's kind of a similar vein that I was also thinking is, what are we really going to gain from this, and what are we going to lose? It's definitely going to impact our largest, flattest green space. I know that the mayor talks about the first impression, and this would be the first impression that you get when you drop into Stimson Avenue on that new entrance that will be one of the university's new, larger entrances. And I just don't see creating more roads as being something that's going to alleviate enough traffic volume that it's worth it. The other thing that I see too is that and this is just a quick education. There's a good chunk of the population that enjoys the bike path because the bike path is separated from vehicles, and the success of a project to me is always, can you increase the value without detracting from what's currently there. And I just see the bike path being pushed aside. Currently, that area which is listed as bike route, down in the lower left-hand corner, that infrastructure is 35 years old. We're talking about replacing the pool that's 40 years old, and we've nobody has made any mention. And that area has at least 3, if not 4, major issues that need to be addressed. I know that when the wastewater treatment plant was improved and expanded, the bikeway was moved and shifted onto the rail bed. So I guess it's going to be pushed to the side as you line up this new road. I'm looking at all those colors and I'm not liking any of them. So thank you.
Any other members want to speak to this? Okay. So I guess my
just a point of
question.
clarification.
Yes.
Because Member Cochran mentioned this, and I'm sensitive to this as well, that one of the requests was to not have a curb cut at the library's parking lot onto the blue path as it went by. That they wouldn't be connected to each other. There wouldn't be a curb cut to allow for cars to go into that parking lot off of what's on here.
That was not my assumption. I'm just saying people are going to park there anyway.
And then walk.
I think you spoke to that on our infrastructure tour, that people could possibly park there, or someone spoke to that, park there and walk to the farmer's market with that close proximity. So I wasn't thinking about the traffic interface at the parking lot, but that there would be increased traffic into their parking lot on particular days that are heavy, both for the farmer's market and for the library patrons.
I appreciate some of the comments tonight about, again, I think as this is discussed or tabled or whatever happens here, is that what is it accomplishing really? Thoroughfares are thoroughfares. People travel on thoroughfares. I do not travel through people's neighborhood to get from one point of town to another. But it just kind of automatically puts cars into a residential area. It's not likely, maybe, but I'm going to see traffic backed up here on Home Street to turn left. Well, they wouldn't be going right. They might be, but to turn left to get back onto East State Street, most people are going to cut through the neighborhood. I think it's just, we could do a traffic study, but honestly, I think that's what people are going to do because they're not going to want to wait at the Home Street, East State Street area to turn left. Even with a light, they're going to have to wait. So again, what are we trying to accomplish? And I understand it's to take some of the traffic off, but are we causing another problem? Member Costas.
Thank you, and I'm sorry that I have to chime in again, but this was just another thought that I just came up with, and really it was with a discussion from a gentleman that works at District 10 ODOT, and it wasn't about this. This was a few weeks ago, but in the city of Marietta right now, they're going through the process of looking at all their streets and kind of identifying what each one does and where and what the purpose is of those streets, and he said. Flat out, he said, there are certain streets that you have to sacrifice to move traffic through, but you don't have to do that for all of them. If East State Street, if we can't get creative enough to move the traffic through East State Street, I feel like through timing lights and the increased, lanes coming off the highway, is this something that could wait until we get everything else installed? I don't know, but I would hate to sacrifice more space to try to move traffic that's just going down East State Street. Thank you.
The other point I would like for administration to sit down with the Transportation Committee and talk about what has changed on the East State Street corridor plans, because I don't recall this being a part of it at all. So if there's something changed or something, I think that we should be apprised of that information, as you just mentioned, that you mentioned something has changed or it was costing
Cost
less.
estimate came in less
So,
in terms of design,
I think we need to see what we saw a year or so ago. We need to see what has changed and those kinds of things, so we are fully apprised of the information. Member Butler.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's comments as well, too, because it's definitely forced me to do some thinking. And my guess is that some of the proposal regarding this plan was an intent to help consider how we would move traffic to a potential future farmers market site and or the pool, potentially. And again, we're not positive yet on the permanent location of either one of those two. When we know the pool is going to be at our campus on East State Street, whether it's at the current location or whether it's at the newer location. But I appreciate Member Costa's comment too as well regarding ODOT and East State Street. When we widened it during the Able administration, we knew it was going to take more volume. We knew that it was going to bring more traffic, and the entrepreneurs and retail businesses on East State Street welcome that. I see that as a corridor that can benefit from some enhancement to ease some of that, but it is designed for that. I do appreciate the administration offering us ideas and brainstorming, because that's what we need to do since we're trying to figure out how to make everything a little smoother and easier to access on our campus where the pool and farmers market may end up. So I don't have any clear, concise answers at the moment, but I'm not enamored with this, but I don't hate it.
I would just, yeah, thank you, Member Butler. I would just say it's important to keep us apprised, the Transportation Committee especially, and, you know, whether or not the library director, I mean, he's new to the position, new to Athens, whether he would feel comfortable stepping one way or another, I'm guessing he won't. He's new to the community. He's going to take the information in. He's not going to jeopardize his position and his facility there either in terms of getting into a battle with the city one way or another. So I think that's what we do. So I really feel like we need to be better informed of this kind of issue.
And along with, on that track, it'd be nice if the public was reintroduced to some of the things that are going to go on in what ODOT's doing. Just because it was talked about so long ago, and part of it was Andy's reverse lane. Yeah, double diamond, and that wasn't a go, but what was good, replace it. And I think that people are like curious. So just, I'm curious.
So I guess we'll have a further conversation about how we proceed with this conversation or whatever. All right.
And I would be very uncomfortable if this went forward without some kind of public hearing.
Absolutely.
With the neighborhood. So yeah. I can already tell you what they'll say.
I just have one question. Maybe I lost it in all this because I'm getting fuzzy here. All you're talking about is taking some money that you have left over from one study and doing another study here. This isn't for construction, is it?
Well, you don't normally put dollars towards design without an idea that in the future you would design that, you would build that.
Right.
So.
But what I'm getting at is that it would seem that if you're going into design, then that means you're also going to do like what the engineer did with East State and the interchange, was you model it, computer model it. You know, you figure, you take traffic counts and you say this is how much traffic it bears, and if we plug all these variables in, this is how the traffic flow is going to go. Is that part of the deal?
Could be.
Could be. I don't feel really sure about that.
Well, I'm not saying yes or no, I feel like, a number of concerns were expressed this evening, so we'll go back and discuss that and see how we proceed.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Okay, we'll move on.
Okay. We'll now enter into special session for the reading of ordinances. And our first group is ordinances for third reading. So Ordinance 10716 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to execute a mutual aid agreement between the City of Athens and Ohio University for law enforcement assistance and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. At this moment, I would like to make a motion for us to consider amending the ordinance 107-16, specifically just a brief strikeout of a few words that acknowledge the idea of cost being associated with this MOU. And then I would like us to pursue a future discussion in committee meeting in the future to look at the financial issues revolved around this that were discussed. So at the moment, I'm just proposing that we consider amending the ordinance with a strikeout.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to amend. And Councilmember Butler, could you read for us the words that you're suggesting we strike out?
Sure. Thank you, President Risley. And I'm open to discussion on this if we're within our rules. The very last sentence of the first paragraph says, mutual assistance pursuant to this agreement shall be provided without cost to the requesting party. And I'm suggesting that we strike out or cut out without cost.
So just striking the words without cost, those
Correct.
two words. Okay.
Sure.
So basically what you're saying is we would have the memorandum of understanding with the Ohio University and the city police. Mm-hmm. And what you would be saying is we would continue with the memorandum of understanding, but the actual financial issue that we discussed at our last committee meeting would be taken out of this equation.
Correct. And then we would pursue a future discussion regarding that with input from the auditor and the mayor's office, the police chief.
And other questions or comments from council members? Yes, Councilmember Cochran.
Thank you. I'm just a little confused because I think that the text that I have before me, and presumably everyone has, doesn't have the words without cost in it.
And what's attached behind this ordinance to explain what you have on your screens is the actual memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
So the full text of that would then, at the end of the first paragraph, be just deleting these two words without cost. So it's the introductory paragraph of the memorandum of understanding that we're talking of amending, which is attached to the end part of the ordinance.
I'd like just to make a point of when we've discussed about cost with this, it seemed that the city was getting a great deal compared to the university. Mm-hmm. And so I think that we just have to realize that, and that, what we get and what they get, I mean, they may start wanting money for their officers and stuff, where they pretty much provide them now for free. And I think, as the administration said last time we talked about this, that it's fairly weighted in our advantage. So.
Thank you, Councilman Reisner.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this ever since this was introduced a few weeks ago. Traditionally, the City of Athens has charged the university, I think the number was $10,000.
I'm sorry, it's so confusing. Previously, it was done through the Fraternal Order of Police.
Okay.
So it was not, we were
Right.
not involved.
Okay.
In terms of,
But essentially, the city was getting money. No? Okay.
Thank you. Our auditor is offering to help us with a few issues. Thank you,
Before
auditor.
this was introduced, and I wasn't at the meeting where it was introduced, Chief Pyle came and spoke to me about this. Previously, the university paid our officers directly when they assisted on campus or for campus or student-related activities. Because of changes in auditing, the university can't pay them like that anymore. They can't be they're not considered contract employees. So when he came to me, the question was, how can we change how the officers get paid for that? My understanding was that we were going to go ahead and pay them that overtime and then invoice the university, and they would reimburse us for those costs instead of them paying them directly. And so I was a little confused when this came up about all of a sudden now we're just not going to bother. I'm not sure where that's coming from and why after all these years. I think the give and take and the balance, there's a lot of ways you can argue that. These events are basically student activities that cause the law enforcement to go back and forth. And it's not a lot of money, but I don't know why, if they were okay paying for this for all these years without it even being in the memorandum, the MOU, why all of a sudden we would say, well, let's just forget that. I don't know if it has to do with us having to start tracking the hours that they do, but that's the issue, is they can't be paid directly by the university the way they were anymore. And so now the MOU and how they get paid for what they do are really two different things.
Right.
Thank you, Auditor.
Okay.
And Auditor Hecht, is it your opinion then that you think a way could be worked out? Is that what you're
Yes,
implying?
and I would agree with Member Butler that it could be separate. I think the bottom line is we need an MOU with them. We have to agree on the scope of services that we will provide, and that the reimbursement is a separate matter that could be maybe handled separately.
The Mayor has a comment as well.
I do. It's just in the conversations with our police chief, he's indicated to me that, so far this year, under the MOU, to help with any policing at the university's football games, that we have not been called upon or asked to help with anything down there for the first two home games, nor for the homecoming game. And as he was saying, thinking this through, that there likely won't be much going on, but that he's good either way council goes with this in terms of how we proceed, which is fine. Again, his understanding, and I can't speak for the chief, but his understanding and conversations with you, Auditor Hecht, was that it's also kind of clunky and cumbersome to have to go through the reimbursement process and work it that way, but that's fine. I mean, we'll figure it out. So I appreciate council entertaining the notion of, again, striking that from that, and then going back and revisiting, how we go about working with Ohio University.
Any other comments or questions?
But it's not working with Ohio University because we have the memorandum. It's just this financial piece.
Working with Ohio
financials.
University for financials.
Yeah.
We're separating the two.
We're separate. You're asking to separate the two. You want to amend to separate the two.
Correct. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second to amend the ordinance by striking the two words "without cost" from the introductory paragraph of the memorandum that's attached to the ordinance. So I'll ask all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Okay, the motion to amend passes. The ordinance has been read for the first time. We're aware of the time constraints that this is so that we can have this in effect for Halloween. We will be able to go through second and third readings at our October regular session, so we'll have this passed in time since it does have an emergency clause. So we'll get it in place.
Thank you
very much. Okay. Move on to Ordinance 10816. This is an ordinance authorizing a contract with the Washington County Commissioners and declaring an emergency, and is introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. I move to adopt Ordinance 108-16.
Second.
We've discussed this in committee, and It's had this is its third reading. This is important in aiding and empowering our police department to work in collaboration with other departments as we see fit with overfill of jail space. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second for approval of Ordinance 10816. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. The ordinance is approved. Ordinance 11016 is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $473,411 of notes by the City of Athens in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of renewing notes previously issued for the purpose of paying part of the costs of acquiring a new pumper truck and related equipment and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt 11016.
Second.
And there it is. You have a truck, you need to pay for it. And well, I have nothing new to say about it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for approval of Ordinance 11016. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 11116 is an ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed $7,300,000 of bonds by the City of Athens, Ohio, for the purpose of financing a new swimming pool facility by retiring notes previously issued for the purpose and providing additional funds for such facility and matters related to such bonds and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move we adopt 1116. 11116.
Second.
Sorry, I misspoke. Last week, we heard from the administration and the auditor, and I see the auditor coming up to speak. I thought last week he did a fantastic job of explaining the necessity of getting this ordinance through and why the bonds are necessary and why we need to move now. If you care to speak to any more about it?
Just briefly add a couple things. I appreciate your support, and yes, we do need to move this along. As I stated last time, that we already have scheduled a bond rating hearing in Chicago for October 12th. One thing I'd like to add to that is that we have been counseled by our bond consultant that we would be wise to get our rating and interest rate set before the election. Whenever there's a change in leadership like that, you don't know what might happen. So that's one reason to go forward. And also to reiterate that getting the money for the pool has nothing to do with the location or design or whatever the administration and council decides to build. This is just having the money in place. We passed a tax levy to put in a new pool. We've been collecting those taxes for over a year and a half, and it's time to get it in place. One other thing I will say, I was at a conference last week, and our consultant was there, and I talked to him about the fact that if you don't agree on a design or placement for a few months, and we can go ahead and borrow this money, and he can help us invest it for a short term as opposed to just leaving it in our account for 6 months or 4 months or whatever. So I think that's another reason I feel better about going ahead and borrowing this money now, moving forward with this process. Thank you.
Mayor?
To add to that, thank you, Auditor Hecht, is that, to go before Moody's, you have to go there and show good faith as you're going forward, too, which was another reason why we're really hoping. We'd actually originally planned to fly out this Friday, Thursday and Friday, to present. We felt it was too tight with Council's decision tonight and to roll forward, so we've pushed it. And also to give ourselves time to prep in terms of going before Moody's and putting the city in the best light forward so that we can secure a good interest rate on our bond with the bond rating.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Katsas.
Yes. My only point is I would have liked to have seen the explanation happen on the first read instead of the second. That's just a comment. I mean, I know that Auditor Heck wasn't in town, but someone could have come forward. I wish, but it didn't. But I just want to make that point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for the suggestion. Okay. A motion and a second for the approval of Ordinance 11116. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 11216 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA state agreement for a pavement replacement project on US 33, State Route 550, and State Route 13, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you, President Isley. I move to adopt 11216.
Second.
We discussed this in committee. This is for ODOT to do their necessary pavement and upgrade of Route 33. And some of that goes in the city limits. So this is the agreement to move forward with that ODOT has to have.
We have a motion and a second for approval of Ordinance 11216. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. The ordinance is approved. Ordinance 11316 is an ordinance closing a portion of Armitage Road on Saturday, October 1st, 2016 for a cross-course bicycle race and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. I move to adopt 11316.
Second.
This again, thinking of our commentary earlier about tourism, this is a cross-country, cross-course bicycle race that is off on the edge of our town on Armitage Road. We are closing a very small portion so that the bicycles can go back and forth for this cross-course race. But again, it's bringing tourism dollars to the community.
We have a motion and a second for approval of 11316. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember Katsas.
Yes, and I apologize, but I'm married to an editor, and it's a cyclocross race. Cross course is fine, but it's technically it's a cyclocross race. That's all I have. Thank you. I don't think we need to amend it or anything else. I think we're good.
Could we consider it a typo, or is that taking out one word and amending another, or?
Well, cross is short for cyclocross, so cross course could be considered the.
So next time we'll get it right.
Yeah,
we'll have the
maybe I'll
wording
speak up sooner too.
Okay, all right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Yes, Mayor
Quickly,
Patterson.
the intent of the ordinance is to close a portion of Armitage Road for a bicycle race that will be taking place. So.
Across it.
We're not going to hold this up for that.
I just want to note, though, I would appreciate it if on the first reading we had known that.
Yeah.
Touche.
All right.
Point taken.
We have a motion and a second for approval of Ordinance 11316. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. The ordinance is approved. Ordinance 11416 is an ordinance banning parking and closing that portion of Court Street from Mulberry to Carpenter on October 29th and October 30th, 2016 in anticipation of a large number of people converging on downtown Athens for Halloween weekend. This is introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. The next four ordinances have to do with Halloween. I don't think I really need to discuss them. They're pretty routine in terms of what we do for each one. So I move to adopt 11416.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second for approval of 11416. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. The ordinance is approved. Ordinance 11516 is an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code Section 13.04.10, unnecessary noise, for scheduled bandstand performances hosted by the Clean and Safe Halloween Committee on October 29th and 30th, 2016, Halloween weekend. This is introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. I move to amend 11516.
Amend it.
I'm sorry, adopt it.
Second. That's late.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of Ordinance 11516. Any other comments or questions?
The only comment I would make is that we are going to close down the bandstand a half an hour earlier this year.
So motion and a second for approval of 11516. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 11616 is an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code Chapter 11.04, vending, peddling, and soliciting to allow vending in a designated area on October 29th and 30th, 2016, Halloween weekend, introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. I move to adopt 11616.
Second.
Second.
Okay. And as described in the title. Any other comments or questions? We have a motion and a second for approval of Ordinance 11616. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ordinance is approved. Ordinance 11716, an ordinance closing a portion of Court Street on Monday, October 31st, 2016 from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. for trick-or-treat hosted by the Athens Uptown Business Association, introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thanks. I move to adopt 11716 as mentioned in the title.
Second. Okay. A motion and a second for approval of 11716. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. The ordinance is approved. We have ordinances for second reading. Ordinance 11816, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA state agreement for bridge inspection program services and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Do we need to suspend this? No.
Ordinance 11916 is an ordinance amending the 2016 appropriation ordinance, introduced by Councilmember Reisner. Ordinance 12016 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 1816, authorizing construction and construction engineering services for the Depot Lift Station, project number 286, introduced by Councilmember Butler. Ordinance 12116 is an ordinance granting a revocable license to American Electric Power, represented by Jamie Shepard, to install ADS fiber cable on the city right-of-way on Factory Street and Riverside Drive. This is introduced by Councilmember Fall. We have a resolution now for second reading, Resolution 1016, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
This does need amendment. Yeah. It needs to be suspended. It's due October 1st.
Okay. I move that we suspend the rules for 1016.
Second.
And the reasons for suspension is as stated by the auditor. To be done.
Okay.
So I therefore make a motion to adopt R1016.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules for Resolution 1016. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I now make a motion that we adopt R1016.
Second.
Okay.
And again, because time's running out.
We have the motion and a second for approval of Resolution 1016. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries and the resolution is adopted. We now have announcements and other business. One of them, just a general announcement that tomorrow is September 27th, and it's National Voter Rights Day. So we're on a limited time, but there's going to be all kinds of registration activities around the community, and you have until October 11th to register to vote. So this is going to raise awareness about that. I also believe for other business, any other announcements? Okay. We have other business. We have the motion to approve the depot art design.
Thank you, President Isley. I would like to make a motion to approve the depot art design that was submitted to us by the Municipal Arts Commission by Keith Wild, and it was an image of frogs, as you recall, we saw last week.
Second. Okay. We have a motion and a second for approval of the depot art design. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Okay, motion is passes, and the depot art design is approved. Yes.
I did have an announcement. But
oh, an announcement, sure.
Yes, just as a reminder for the Athens area stand down, which is on the 7th of October, that there are donation boxes, once again, one in the city building here, and there's one at the community center to receive coats, clothes, toiletries, things that might be needed for those who are less fortunate and homeless, which is what the stand down represents. And the stand down, again, is October 7th at the fairgrounds at 10 a.m. until, I believe, 2 p.m. Just as a reminder.
Okay. All right. Any other announcements? Then we'll, a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Hey.